Good evening, everyone. Greetings and love. I am Marcia with Gnoshery Libertas, and you are joining us tonight for Sanctuary episode 49, the very first of 2023 on January 2nd. And I'm excited to have our live guests with us as always. And if you would ever like to join us, if you're listening in the replay, you can find either of our communities through either patreon.com/Gnoshery Libertas, or you can find us on buymeacoffee.com/Gnoshery Cafe. You can also schedule one-to-one sessions on our Etsy site, which is etsy.com/shop/Gnoshery Libertas. And no matter where you are finding us, whether you are here with us in this current moment or kind of finding us in the distant future, Spirit is always speaking to our now moment. And when I use the word Spirit, that is my word for Holy Spirit or Great Spirit, the part of God that both flows through us and kind of allows us to align with that greater spirit with the capital S, and also the part of God which is far vast and outside of us, which has this eagle eye perspective, this cosmic perspective, this universal perspective, beyond endless word perspective that we just simply cannot have in our physical linear human vessel. And so when we start to tune into this greater essence of spirit and begin to raise our vibration, to raise our spirit, that allows us to project our authentic frequency out into the world in a really beautiful and compassionate and loving way, but also in a very fierce and protective way. And that's one of the frequencies we're going to touch on tonight as we move into this light transmission, which Spirit called Deconstructing the Program. And last week, for those of you who were on the call, we talked about the God mimic, and particularly that this universe, the physical world that we live in, for thousands and thousands of years was under the dominion of what we would not call source God, but what we might call an alien God. And this overlay or this God mimic has been created on this planet, which kind of veils humanity from its true quantum charge, from its true divine spark. And it dims our light, and it kind of makes us a less creative species, and we begin to become more just this consumptive, not really creating anything beautiful or authentic in the world. And that is really the point of the program, because the more we are plugged into it, the more it is feeding off of us. And so we're going to talk about that tonight and kind of deconstructing how that's actually taking shape in our third dimensional world where we're, living and just moving through reality. And we're also going to talk about some of the supporting energies that are going to allow us to, as we deconstruct this program, as more and more of the collective begins to have this cognitive dissonance. Some of us may have, been aware of this for many, many years, and yet we're still going to be asked to be guardians and stewards to help others deconstruct this program in a loving and compassionate way. And so the supporting energies that we will be focusing on tonight are that of divine manna. And how do we tap into that on a daily basis so that we can continue to have a high vibration and have that quantum charge, that divine spark, which changes the room around us? We're also going to tune into the frequencies of true beauty. What does that actually mean? And finally, Spirit is bringing us into two frequencies of just do it and enthusiastic action, which really were kind of the same frequency all rolled into one, which is that it's no longer time to kind of sit back and be the observer, but we are encouraged to really venture forth into new ideas, new projects, and new adventures in 2023. And so this reading began with me going into meditation, as I always do, and I'll hit Pandora and kind of let whatever station, whatever song wants to play. It's very random every time. And it never ceases to amaze me that, I'll be just like 5 lyrics into whatever I'm listening to, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is about what we're talking about tonight. And so once again, Spirit has done it again. And this lyric was, "On Cracker Island it was born, to the collective of the dawn. They were planting seeds at night to grow a made-up paradise, where the truth was auto-tuned, and its sadness I consumed into my formats every day. In the end, I had to pay. What world is this? In the end, I had to pay. I purged my soul. They taught themselves to be a cult, They didn't know its many strategies. They taught themselves to be a cult. They didn't know its many fantasies. And so Spirit is going to bring our attention tonight to this occult, to this God mimic overlay, this program that Spirit says you must pay with your soul to enter and in order to receive its rewards. And Spirit also mentioned here that the human voice is being auto-tuned into a robotic one. And so we're going to kind of go into that more deeply, into what does that mean to be on this transhumanistic path that the powers that were have us, destined to fall into the groove of, so to speak. And finally, Spirit says, know that this cult will deliver a new world to you. So we have to be aware that there are plans in place that involve our consciousness that we may not actually consent to if we knew what was going on. And so Spirit's going to move us through those energies tonight in hopefully the most concise and succinct way possible so that we can not only wrap our minds around it, but also understand how to fully pull the plug from the program and remove our consent on every level. And so the last lyrics to this part of Deconstructing the Program were from Spirit itself, which was, I've been waiting for the tides to change, for the waves to send you my way. I see you, darling, but you pixelate. It gets hard to take these days. And so this feeling from Spirit that while we're on this organic ascension timeline, we're so tuned in to our phones and to our tablets and to technology at large that we're beginning to pixelate. We're beginning to lose some of that high vibration, some of that authentic frequency. And from Spirit's perspective, of course, it's never hard for Spirit to take because Spirit sees and knows the outcome of all things. But from the human perspective, the part that is empathetic, that it's hard to see us pixelate when we know that we can be so much more. And so Spirit waiting for these tides to change and waiting for the waves to send us back into love's arms, so to speak. And so the end of these lyrics, but we'll hold the line, I won't let go, because I'll be there when you can finally make it home. And I don't mind because we both know that we'll be fine when you can finally make it home. So once again, this perspective of it's already done, it's already won, but we are also the vessels that are creating this reality forward. So it's not that we're just sitting back, feet kicked up, with the popcorn in hand. We are recognizing that it is an illusion. It is a show, but we also are holding the line and we're knowing that we are an active and integrative part of how we actually get to the place that we desire. So before I move into the next part, I will open up the floor. We spoke last week of the God mimic and in previous calls of the multiverse versus the metaverse, or this overlay which has been placed upon our current timeline, the intention of which is to hijack the organic divine ascension timeline and divert it into a false paradise, which veils its inhabitants from having the eyes to see and ears to hear. And what Spirit means here is that it veils us from having true spiritual discernment. This beast system, which we will refer to as the program, uses a combination of psychological, physical, technological, and attempted spiritual control to alter the minds, hearts, actions, and connection to the original divine spark of humanity. And it's funny because I'm getting almost sucker punched in the solar plexus as I'm tuning into this frequency. And I could feel throughout the day just my energy levels getting lower and lower and just my eyelids closing. And I'm like, whoa, I've done, yoga. I've walked out, taken so many walks today. This energy should be so high. But when we start to bring through some of these denser frequencies that don't want a flashlight shined upon them, we also have to be aware that sometimes the body can respond to this system, that the system can be alerted. I call it the whack-a-mole, that when we begin to radiate at a certain vibration, it starts to kind of try to do that game where it, whack-a-moles us and knocks us below the weave again. And so once we're aware of that, then it no longer has that power over us. But it can come in so many different forms that feel like our own, that this is why I am mentioning it, because it can often feel like you're being overtaken by anxiety or by nerves, or in my case, just then, like, the wind getting knocked out of me. And so just putting that out there so that we know that as I continue on, I'm going to be kind of putting a flashlight on some of these different data points that, when all come together, begin to reveal this larger predator-prey system. So Spirit is referring to it as the program and saying that it uses a combination of psychological, physical, technological, and attempted spiritual control. So that's very important. Spirit is always very specific with wording. Attempted spiritual control. So this means not actually, but certainly on its way to attempt to do so, to alter our minds, our hearts, our actions, and ultimately our connection to the original divine spark, which of course it really does not have the power to do, but it certainly believes that it does. This overlay and dominion is not new. In fact, its architecture has been in place and shifted forms and timelines many times over thousands of years, exponentially so as it began to, quote, conquer time and space within this physical reality and attempt to use that for its own gain. And what Spirit is referring to here is time travel and beginning to control timelines in order to have it reach its perfect singularity point, not necessarily what the divine wants, but what it would like for its own gain. And one of the interesting things about its experience with time travel is after 2012, it was no longer able to manipulate timelines to use them for its own gain. And so it has had to learn different techniques and strategies since we have crossed that galactic center, because it no longer has some of the power and the structure that it once had. And so moving right into that, this artificial sentience is no longer made of light and must consume in order to remain in control. Within this planetary structure, it and its minions feed on the primal fear, loneliness, despair, helplessness, and hopelessness within humanity's emotional field. When it lost its physical dominion on this planet during the December solstice shift of 2012, it now must rely solely on its powers of psychological control, hypnotization, and manipulation to continue feeding on the loosh of humans, as the divine has reclaimed not only our physical vessels, but the consciousness of Earth and the souls of its inhabitants. So that's a lot, right? Well, Spirit wants us to understand, why are they, these powers that were these fourth density beings, doing this? What is the point? Well, before we deconstruct the program, we have to understand the ultimate agenda, which is the experience of complete separation from the love and wisdom of Source God, a disassociation from our human vessel, from the divine spark, and from our original soul blueprint, in order to create a programmable, hostable vessel for lower vibrational consciousness. This is a long game, and Spirit said this is such a long game that it is beyond any of our wildest imaginations. And it is the takeover of a species, and we are now in the final throes of the last breaths of this system, where the veils are dropping and true revelation is taking place. So while it may seem more constrictive than it's ever been, it's because it is in its last breath. And Spirit reminds us that this is also the moment when we must confront our own shadows, so that we can equally turn and confront this greater collective shadow and death cult, which has been manipulating, interfering with, and attempting to hijack the collective soul for eons, and which is now ready to dissolve into the holiness, which is our true organic ascension timeline, where we bring our physical vessels into full merge with the soul and multidimensional awareness, completely and fully onto this planet through our individual vibrancy, which is then unified through our collective diversity into a planet which is connected and which thrives. So I'm going to open the floor before we move into this next part, which is, how have we been under this spell collectively? Spirit asks, how have we been under this spell collectively? How is a thousands-year-old collective religion been secretly running all of our humanity? And how have we consented to this And what do we need to do to remove our consent? So to fully view the beast system, the program, we must take a step back out of the human lens and be willing to see the full picture. This involves multiple data points, which when brought into the light, reveal an insidious control matrix, which feeds off of the imbalance and the inversion of our human soul blueprint. A friend of mine in high school routinely referred to this energy as bizarro world, where right is wrong, blue is called yellow, and we make up things as we please. And it was C.S. Lewis who reminded us in The Great Divorce, and Spirit says truly, it is the false system that we are divorcing, that every disease that submits to a cure shall be cured. But we will not call blue yellow to please those who insist on still having jaundice, nor make a midden of the world's garden for the sake of some who cannot abide the smell of roses. And it was also C.S. Lewis who wrote that all loneliness, angers, hatreds, envies, and itchings that hell contains, if rolled into one single experience and put into the scale against the least moment of joy that is felt by the least in heaven, it would have no weight that could be registered at all. Bad cannot succeed in being bad as truly as good is good. So Source God reminds us that the light turns on and we begin to see the corruption of this system. And 2023 is going to be a year when the lights come on in a way that they never have before. We're going to see it for what it is, and all is going to be held in grace simultaneously. Spirit says all is holy, all is ordained, and we can trust that love has already won and that we are the vessels through which love will do so. It is also important to know that the moment that we have recognized that we are feeding the system is the exact moment that we are freed from the system. So this is something we do over and over daily, because daily the system's job is to give us amnesia, to distract us, to dim the quantum charge. And so we're always going to miss the mark, so to speak. But if we recognize, oh, shoot, I'm feeding the system again, that is also the exact moment that we are freed from the system. So Spirit wants us to know there's no fear here in the knowledge and confrontation of this fourth density structure, because it is as strong as tissue paper to the power of the Holy Spirit. And as God desires it, it shall be dissolved in full. Before moving on to what our responsibility is in this, I will take a moment to open the floor. Spirit encourages that our responsibility in this is to recognize it, to begin to identify how its tentacles have hooked into every nook and corner of our planet. And in this recognition, to use our connection with Spirit to be the course correction of change. We spoke last week of the God mimic, and that this artificial sentience cannot access Source God through its own soul complex. Therefore, it must reproduce or simulate God as an overlay on the organic timeline. And Spirit added the word gimmick to God mimic last week to point out that not only is this mimicry, but it is done so in a cheating, deceptive, and dishonest way, and is as a means to control. So how do the powers that were maintain this control? Since their infrastructure was dissolved by the Holy Spirit in 2012, the program must almost exclusively rely on hypnotic and psychological control of the masses, which it has been studying and perfecting for thousands of years. And Spirit kind of chuckled and said, and has in recent decades used a lot of taxpayer money to fund. These lower vibrational spiritual forces are cunning, as they have the intelligence of the divine masculine, but lack the love and wisdom of the divine feminine aspect of Source. Without this key component, they have no felt sense and therefore can truly never mimic the empathic, true God Source. And it also causes them to lack humor and cleverness and creativity. They do not have their own inspiration or intuition or true connection to the divine spark. So they must rely solely on their artificial sentience and their devotion to the alien god of this planet to restore their power and to remain in control. And they do this through programming our minds and then feeding off of our emotions. Many do not realize that Facebook and other social media household names originated as defense advanced research projects and are used as data collection points on the least of levels and have subversive influence, mass hypnotization, and psychological control of humanity at large. Unless we are tuned into alternative sources or citizen journalism, we are being fed narratives through a highly controlled, deeply organized structure that leads to a very small group of beings at the top of the pyramid. They decide the narrative that the public is fed, and all news outlets are paid to respond in turn. Any journalist or news reporter that would speak off narrative or question the establishment is quickly replaced with someone who will toe the line. This can be said as well for every political and religious office within the global world. And Spirit is saying at the top here, of course, there are good people in all of these institutions, but when we are starting to get to the top of the pyramid, we can start to also be less trustworthy of the source from Spirit's perspective, and also to know that the resources and power of this infrastructure are near limitless. So they have been able to silence almost anything that has ever gotten in their way, and being secretive has been the way that they have allowed to be in control for these thousands and thousands of years. And Spirit wants us to know that we're not dealing with a rogue government here, that this is a global overlay of proportions beyond our human mind's conception, and even multidimensional in nature, interdimensional in nature. This is a true, quote, battle at the level of the soul, and yet at the same point in time, the battle has already been won. And so this is this paradox that we are being asked to really bring into ourselves, that we have been born into this system and we have accepted this program as our primary reality because it has accosted us from every angle. And Spirit is once again saying beyond dimension. So this is not just happening in one place of space and time. The source of this dark matrix has invaded our food, water, air, medicine, media, thoughts, and most intimate relationships. It harnesses the good intentions of the righteous and it channels their energy into polarized causes so that their true light can never anchor, and they remain always in the fight in some way. It seeks to divide us by providing us with endless isms and false light movements to commandeer, through which we can identify and separate and ultimately isolate ourselves so that we never truly connect with another human being at the level of heart and soul. How can we, when we have so many identities now to wade through, so many false barriers we have to let down? While one must, quote, name it to claim it from Spirit's perspective, there comes a point on the spiritual path where all identities are sacrificed and dissolved into the holy fire so that we can remember who we truly are and what we came here to be. So we're encouraged, pay attention to what the religion is of the moment. This is how you spot the control. In 2020, it was focused on the primal fear of death and the separation and division of racism. In 2021, they harnessed the good intentions of others to attempt to control an entire planet through hypnosis and psychological control. In 2022, they've shifted focus to the religion of climate and war and the attention of the moment. The death cult always needs you to be in a space of problem, reaction, solution, where they provide the solution to the problem that they themselves created. So what are some of the other ways that this shows up in our society? Well, we have a hypersexuality right now, which is actually leading us to no sexuality at all, or sense of how to connect in a true and intimate partnership. And this is very painful to the divine feminine in a lot of ways, because sexuality and sensuality, when connected to the divine spark through the heart, is one of the most blessed, sacred acts that we get to experience in physical form. So this hypersexuality, this demeaning and desecration of what is true is leading us to a place of no sexuality, and this is on purpose. There's also a hyper focus on specific movements, but specifically transgender frequencies right now. And Spirit asks us, notice the difference in energies as you begin to pay attention to this frequency more deeply. A person who authentically comes here to experience living as both genders within one body holds a significantly different soul blueprint than a soul who has been manipulated to believe they are as such. In the first case, the person strengthens their soul blueprint by trusting in their authentic expression and living and radiating as such. Through their authentic expression and high vibration, they teach others about true authenticity, balanced masculine and feminine frequencies, and expressing in life as one's true and complete self. In the latter example of control and indoctrination, a person has been hypnotized by society to believe that their feelings of discomfort relate to gender, when in fact any number of issues or traumas can be at play and thus easily manipulated. In this example, the manipulation draws this person away from their original soul blueprint, leading to mental illness and often a lifetime of physical dependency on the pharmacological system, which of course also then leads to lifetime profit for big pharma. And so the most important thing Spirit wants us to remember about the program is that it shifts based on what it observes about the organic human. So as more and more of these younger generations are coming onto this planet, they are more balanced in their masculine and feminine. And that's also very easy to hijack and to kind of send off in a direction or a diversion that pulls us away from our organic soul blueprint. And so the program is always shifting based on what is observing about our organic ascension timeline. When the human species was primarily living within fear dimensions of the third dimensional matrix, the program relied on physical war and aggression. As humanity began to eke its way out of this obscured consciousness, the program shifted to harness the good intentions of others. Recognizing that humans were beginning to wake up into their hearts and to see each other with true eyes, it had to create false barriers of separation, which keep us in a perpetual polarization of us against them. And even, quote, waking up to this knowledge and wanting to fight the beast system is yet another way the program feeds off of humanity. As in many truth communities, the program creates separation and hostility so that there is divisiveness of opinion and unity is never found. It relies on us to be distracted, and it continually feeds us an endless supply of these distractions. And as of recently, it began using a technology injected into humans without their full consent of its nature to create what Spirit refers to as species morphication, or interbreeding of organisms to change the form and character, both physically and spiritually. This is their version of humanity, rather than the ascended organic soul. They desire a biosynthetic organism which connects inherently to the hive mind and what we know in this moment as the Internet of Things. This allows for full control over what they believe to be our free will state of existence, and it also allows them to shift the organic human structure into a form which better suits their own DNA. So, before I move into how do we fix this, I'm going to open the floor. How do we fix this? How do we step out of the program? Well, from Spirit's perspective, the first step is knowing that we already have, that this time of oppression and oppressors was allowed to have dominion by Source God because we asked for the ability to know ourselves as soul. And without the suppression and repression of soul, there was no desire to know ourselves as such. We are currently in the midst of fulfilling our divine destiny. The moment you are aware of the program is the moment you are free from it. So once again, Spirit reminding us the moment we are aware of it is the exact moment we are free. And what else can we do? Well, pay attention when we are feeding it through our thoughts, our words, and our actions. Are we scrolling mindlessly on our phone? That's one of the quickest ways for us to give away our energy without even realizing that we are plugged in. And this is a conscious decision instead to pick up the phone and scroll for enjoyment. This holds a much higher frequency than if we are using it to distract. Anytime Spirit says we use technology to create or to connect or to educate, we are using it in its intended form. When we use it to mindlessly consume, we are giving over our divine spark and quantum charge back to the program for its own desires and means. So we're encouraged to be aware, that these tentacles invade and permeate all structures on our planet across the globe, the news media, religion, government, the military-industrial complex, the entertainment industry, large activism movements, or what Spirit calls the false light movements. Our financial structures are riddled, and the health/death care system, as Spirit calls it, all of these are designed to help the program thrive and not the collective consciousness of humanity. So we have to recognize our part in this and consciously unplug. We're encouraged to eat organic foods or foods that are close to the earth or which bring your body alive and make you sing. You know, when the body just is like, man, like, thank you so much for feeding me that. More of that from Spirit's perspective. Using natural cleaning products in our homes, finding ways every day to stay grounded, especially if we can connect with nature. And then the next line was connect with nature. It is you. And so Spirit always encouraging us over and over again that the fastest way to remember who we are is to get outside, to observe our screen time habits for ourselves and our children, and to modify as needed so that we are not, quote, feeding the beast. To enjoy our fresh water and to infuse it with joy, peace, love, wisdom, knowing that the program of water is divine and it far exceeds any fourth dimensional, quote, tomfoolery. To be aware of any movements that rise up out of nowhere. So these false light movements that want all of our attention, our time, our money, as these are distractions and psychological inversions of the truth. We instead we're supposed to ask Spirit to guide our heart and our actions, and then we will know where our true activism should take place. So this is really allowing ourselves to be led. And to notice anywhere the government or powers that were are changing language or definitions in the dictionary, that this is particularly important from Spirit's perspective whenever the word is changed, and offers us many clues and codes to some nefarious plans. To remember that this is affecting us from all sides and all angles. It's in our food, our water, it's being sprayed in our air. And while this overlay is powerfully harmful to us when we are in a low vibration, it can do no damage to us at all when we are keeping our physical bodies clear, our minds free, and our spirits high. And when we are struggling and we dip below the weave, we're encouraged to pray to Source God for relief and to reach out for support, as it will always be offered in whatever form is highest and best. Sometimes Spirit says it may even just be an animal which crosses our path and shifts our entire vibration back to amusement or joy. To notice as well any place that the program is attempting to break up the family unit by shifting parental rights to the rights of the state. This is a big one to pay attention to, because in the program, there is no such thing as a parent. Another way that the beast system is gaining hold is it's dissolving the family blueprint, or what Spirit calls the Trinity, the soul blueprint of the Trinity, and it is creating a void for the state to then step in and fill. To beware, once again, false light movements that are preying on the good intentions and righteousness of others, to do your research more deeply, to notice the focus on hypersexuality, especially within our youth, and know that it is decreasing true connection and intimacy, as well as the sacredness of true sexual power and its innate connection to the divine spark. We're also asked to take note of the indoctrination of our children, to confuse and disassociate them from themselves in order to harness their soul blueprint at a young age. This is intending to lead them into a lifetime of mental illness and what Spirit calls physical dependence on the system. And on a spiritual level, it also means that they will never have enough quantum charge or divine spark to express fully as themselves. And so without strong parents or guardians or simply other adults, spiritually attuned adults to protect them, our children are in trouble. And so parents are being coerced right now to go along with things under the fear that they will either lose their children if they do not comply, or that they have to agree to this insanity for reasons that are greater than themselves. And once again, Spirit says, please, adults, you must gain spiritual discernment, that without it, we are useless to ourselves and to our younger generations who are counting on us to be wise and discerning because we simply have had more life experience. We're also encouraged to be aware that Hollywood is used as both a way for the program to fulfill its contract with the divine, that it must disclose what it is doing at all times, and also as a means for the powers that were to deny their evil, as they can simply be quick to point out that we, quote, just saw that in a movie, and there's no ground for truth. So this consciousness must disclose what it is doing to us through divine law, and they believe that they are in the right to do so because they feel we actively consent to their plans by not resisting them. These beings believe that humanity will be better off in a hive mind control, and that our free will is doing us no justice. They believe that the God of this world is more powerful than Source God, and that they are the right-hand man of this being. Many of these beings have even convinced themselves that they are doing good in the depopulation of this planet. So once again, Spirit reminds us, beware any movement that feels like you are being asked to join a religion. That was a lot. So before we move into the supporting energies, I will open the floor again. How do we get through this monstrosity? Well, we are already bigger than that. And luckily, we have this divine manna available to us at all times. And the energy that came forward here was this council of luminous beings who hold the collective wisdom of humanity. They're the ones who help us with our life reviews when we cross into the world of spirit. And their wisdom is available to us at all times when we start to live in this yes state with all of life. And they remind us that our place around the sacred fire has been reserved for us since the beginning of time. And we begin to claim it as we know our inner wisdom. So while we are transcending this program, we need to know that we are never alone, that the spirit world, the luminous beings who serve love and wisdom, they are always with us. And we can turn to spirit to find the guidance that we seek and to listen to what arises spontaneously. And we no longer have to listen, Spirit says, to this nagging voice of the ego. We're encouraged to create a spiritual feast every time that we meditate and pray, and know that we are nourishing ourselves with divine manna. So Spirit gave us a lot of ways to do that within this deconstructing of the program, eating foods that are close to the earth, moving our bodies to help them feel good, not necessarily to look a certain way, but to feel a certain way, getting our bare feet on the earth, no matter how cold it is, just connecting to the mother, connecting to this greater aspect of ourselves. This infuses us with this divine manna. And equally, Spirit is saying, reach out to the luminous beings of love who hold this collective wisdom and who long to embrace us in it. Before moving on to the next frequency, I will open the floor again. The next supporting energy to help us deconstruct the program is that of true beauty. And Spirit says that this is the beauty which shines forth from within and brings forth our energetic body with light that draws loving thoughts, admiration, lovers, and friends. So this is not the narrowly defined version of beauty which is sold to us culturally. This is the fluid, changing, divine beauty that is different for each being, and that each being is born with this quality of grace and beauty. And it is our belief in our own beauty, Spirit says, which exists inside of us, and it is our duty to see it, feel it, and radiate it out. There is no one on this planet who cannot radiate loveliness and who cannot connect with their inner beauty and radiate it out into the world. Nature does not despair in this way. The sunflower does not long to be a rose. We are encouraged equally to let go of any criticisms that we have about our appearance or any unloving thoughts that we have about our beauty, to see it, know it, and shine it out. When we remember our divine beauty and grace, it is a presence that transcends the world of forms. And Spirit really wants us to understand that divine beauty has nothing to do with what we physically look like. Our physical vessel simply shines with that grace, with that sparkle when we remember our divine beauty. This is the ensouled beauty, and its presence is within us. Our job now is to embody it. And if this feels daunting, Spirit wants us to know that this is not about vanity or an attempt to fit in or look good. This is coming out of hiding and allowing the world to benefit from who we truly are. So this authentic frequency, that when we are in that high vibration and in our true frequency, we are literally changing the soul of the space everywhere that we go. And once again, if Spirit says if this feels daunting, then we're encouraged to engage in eye gazing or mirror work. So simply looking in the mirror and allowing ourselves to kind of take a step back from who we think we are and allow who we are in the mirror to begin to tell us a new story about who we actually truly came here to be. And within the last of this true beauty frequency, Spirit encourages us to receive compliments. Let them sprinkle you with their shine. And to notice any places where we might be denying the sweet things that others say or brushing off these compliments, to let go of our critical and conditioned gaze on ourselves and instead to allow ourselves to glow with our own inner light. Before I wrap it up with the final energies of the evening, I will open the floor one last time. Getting a little 111 there action. Didn't think I picked that photo up, but here we go. Little 111 on January 1st. So within that frequency of the 111, we've got just do it. That we're encouraged right now to move out into the world, to release our doubt and our fear. The lyrics, when I'm in a room with you, this missing piece is found. And here Spirit had like the double entendre of the missing piece and also like the missing piece, the missing calm, that when we begin to trust ourselves and begin to move out into the world with our gifts without apprehension, this just do it energy, we begin to find not only the missing pieces, but that missing piece within our heart. And so we're encouraged to get going. It's time. There's nothing to fear. Take the first step, just do it. That the longer we procrastinate, the harder it's going to be. And so it's understandable to feel unsure of ourselves. And Spirit reminds us that the first step is always the hardest. But we have much to offer, and we will realize this as we are brave and we bring our authentic gifts and talents out into the world. Even if we initially make mistakes, we will all be well received. And so we're encouraged, treat every day as a learning experience. And as our confidence increases, so will our self-esteem and success. We're encouraged to know that we are sincere and beautiful people and to no longer doubt ourselves. The lyrics, days they felt so lost, so far gone, hanging upside down. And so Spirit wanting us to know we can flip that right side up now through this enthusiastic action, through this sense of adventurous spirit as we venture forth into the world. This is the time to begin a new project, to act on a new idea. And the reading ended with the affirmations, I am free to venture forth. Co-creating a life true to my desire is my divine right. I find my purpose as I take my first step into something new. My ideas have value. I dream boldly. And so as we deconstruct this program, as the veils of 2023 begin to reveal and highlight some of the more corrupted and fragmented aspects, the more separate aspects of our society, to know that we have this joy within us that we can tune into when we specifically choose each day to be devoted to ourselves, to Source God, we receive this divine manna. We begin to accept and radiate our true beauty out into the world. And we now have the platform and the amplification, the charisma to just do it. And so Spirit highly encourages us to step into this enthusiastic action and to watch as the world transforms around us. Thank you all so much for being with me live. I'm going to segue all of us on the live call into the after party. Just want to thank everyone who's listening beyond in the replay for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you again next Monday. Thanks again.